Hello world. Today it is episode number 36 from the 39.6 show, the show that teaches you how to make your money work for you so you don't have to work for your money. Along our car week theme, we have a question today from Michael, which is actually the topic I plan to cover anyhow. But his question is, I'm just curious if you considered getting a new Subaru Ascent. They have 0% for 63 months on new ones in my area, so I was leaning toward getting a new one versus a used one. All right, and thank you all for everybody who has joined our Facebook group. We have had tremendous growth in the past 1 week since we restarted. We are up to 324 members now. We've more than doubled the size of the group, and we are rapidly on our way to hit 500. Please share with a friend, and we will hit that very quickly. Okay, so episode number 36. Okay, should I buy a new car or a used car, especially given that the new cars are at 0%? Okay, so I actually was very much considering getting a new 2021 Ascent, particularly because the 2021 model actually has lane centering, which is something they have already rolled out on other models like the Forester and the Crosstrek and the Outback, I believe. However, with the new Ascent that came out in 2019, they did not bring lane centering with it, and they didn't put it in the 2020 model. And we had been searching for months, and I was wondering if in 2021's new model they would have lane centering, and they do. That, I think, is the biggest value add to the new model, which doesn't necessarily cost much more. However, with the new 2021 models being on sale, the 2020s are a little cheaper. Okay. So I had thought about getting a new car and kept on price checking them. There are not that many Ascents that are out there. We wanted to get a limited trim, but if the price was right, I was going to get the premium. And when this deal was up, the numbers worked out that it was too good of a price to just not get it. Okay, especially because I ultimately think this will be more of our nanny's car, the car that stays at home with the kids because the kids aren't in school this year, and our family car on the weekends, but not likely to be really my daily driver. So I didn't really want to get the cost too high, and I really wanted something less expensive because I might not even be the one driving it. Okay, but I'm going to go through some of the math involved in choosing to get a new car or a used car. Now, of course, with every model year, there are different things involved with that year, which makes this not the most pure analysis. But if you're going to buy any car, you should understand what its rate of depreciation is, because it's not just about the price you pay at the front end. It's really the total cost of the ownership and the total cost per mile that you get and total cost per month or year that you own the vehicle. Okay. And so ultimately, if you bought a car, even if it were $100,000 car, and the next year is still worth $100,000, and let's pretend you had no maintenance and it gets incredible mileage, that's actually financially very attractive, except that you have $100,000 of your capital locked up in the vehicle. That's assuming you pay for it up front. So the depreciation is a cost that you have to pay because that's ultimately the value that you're losing as you own the vehicle. Okay, so your cost of ownership is depreciation, maintenance, gas, insurance. Okay, and so those are the overall costs. We're going to kind of ignore some of them, like insurance and gas. Okay, but we will pay attention to the depreciation as well as maintenance cost. Okay, so this website, it used to be called Used First. I don't know if they rebranded or if somebody bought them, but now it's called Car Edge. CarEdge.com. This just changed very recently. Now you can look up the depreciation rates of any car. They don't have every single model because there aren't a lot of data points for certain things. For example, the Ascent just came out in 2019. So there aren't a lot of used car 2019s that sold in 2020 for them to actually calculate what the depreciation rate is. Okay, so you can't actually look up a Subaru Ascent to find out what that curve is. It's completely speculative. Okay, but you can look at Subaru as a make in general, and they do basically a kind of a weighted average of the cars that are out there. And you can see the percent decline per year relative to the year prior. Okay. So this curve is actually reasonably straight for the first 8 years. Okay. You can see that the first year, it goes down 17% in value to 83% of its original price. Then it goes down an additional 14% from that price. Okay. And so the second year, you have less depreciation than you do in the first. From the second to the third year, from 2018 to 2017, is when you have the least amount of depreciation. So that's a year-over-year decline of only 7.7% from 2018 to the 2017 model. Going from 2017 to 16 is 15%. And then after that is 12%, 13%, 13%, going all the way back to 2013. So that's like a very straight line. Then after that, it's a different straight line, a little bit softer. It's 7.7%, 6.5%. Okay, then it goes back to 12, 13, and 7. So this car, actually, if you go from 2020 all the way to 2010, okay, so that's over a 10-year period, you end up at around 27% of its original value. So you used up 73% over 10 years, or 7% per year. Okay, if you look at it over the first 5 years in 2015, now this looks like if we look at cancer survival charts, we look at the 5-year survival. So you look at 2015 or 5 years out, and we look at what that would be here is around 53%. So it still has about 53% of its value after 5 years. That's pretty good. That's 47% over 5 years, or about 9% per year. Okay. So the Subaru is a car that's relatively linear, but it is a little bit steeper at the very beginning. Okay. Now, they do have data on the Outback, and that is the closest car to the Ascent. The Ascent is really just basically a bigger Outback, but with 3 rows. And you can see that the first 2 years here, it is a little bit, again, steep, and then it flattens out, and then it stays on a straight line from 2017 and going back. Okay, so if we use this as a model, a 2019 car should be selling at around 83% of a 2020 car. Now, ours was a 2019 Ascent, and we got it for $28,400, and its original MSRP was $36,600. And I don't know what the person paid for it, but most people, I think, were paying MSRP for a 2019 Ascent in 2019. So that was a reduction of 23% in value in 1 year. Okay, and it wasn't like they bought it in 2018 as a 2019 model. I have the Carfax, was it, or the auto check? I think it was a Carfax, and it was actually not until like mid 2019. So it really is a 1 year old car, and it had 23% less than the original price. 23% is pretty good of a discount for a price, because this would predict it to be only around a 17% reduction. So that's not necessarily a lot. You see, it's just 6%, but a 23% reduction would bring us down over here. And 2018, it's 73%. So it's like not quite the price that I would get for a 2-year-old car, but it's approaching that. So I kind of have like almost a whole year of depreciation ahead of me that I didn't have to pay for. Now, if I trade this in at some point in the future, there's going to be margin on that side. But I got a good price. On Car Gurus, this was a great price. If you look on Car Gurus for Subaru Ascent, you're not going to find many, if any, Subaru Ascents that are listed as a great price. And this was a CPO vehicle. So it's very uncommon to get a certified pre-owned vehicle at a competitive price that goes into that great price territory, because certification, it does increase the value. It could easily increase the value by about $2,000 more than a similar non-certified pre-owned vehicle. Okay. Now we're going to look at some others. A Honda Odyssey. This is almost a perfectly straight line. Okay, so each year, here the first year it's 13%, then 9%, then 15%, and these are relative to the previous year. But if you go down 5 years, it's 50% at 5 years. Okay, so 10% per year. Now on these charts, it says in green what year is the best value, because that's where they see that the depreciation is going to be like the least amount looking forward. Okay, if you go back to the Outback 2018, they consider to be the best value, because from 2018 to 2017, that depreciation is only a few percent. That's a very inexpensive year in terms of the decline of the vehicle. And the maintenance also is still minimal, because you're in the first 3 years, it's still under warranty. Subaru in general, they have 2018 as the best value. Now, Lexus, look at the RX 350, which I also looked at. The back seat on the 350H, or the 350L rather, is just so tiny. Really, really, really hard to get back there. I spent about 2 seconds looking at that car and realizing there's no way that was going to work for us. But and they're also a lot more expensive than I wanted to pay. But because a new car here is well over $50,000. And I don't really like the infotainment very much. They just, I think they have Apple CarPlay, I think, now on the new ones. But if you go back even a couple of years, I don't think they had Apple CarPlay, and that was something very important to me. But if you look at this going to 2019, you get a 20% drop. But then from that point forward, it's very flat, very minimal decrease year over year. For the next 2 years, is less than a 10% decrease. And going all the way to 2015, at 5 years, it's at 64%. So that's only a 12% drop per year. Or sorry, it's at 64. It's gone down 36%. So it's only a 7% drop per year. That is a very good maintenance of its value. It does really not depreciate very much. So if you're leasing a car, you have to pay for the depreciation during that lease term. Sometimes you can lease an expensive car for really a very competitive monthly price, because it doesn't depreciate very much over those 3 years that you own it, even though it has a high sticker price. Okay. Now, along the Japanese cars, the Toyota RAV4, which is a great car, I think they sell like 100,000 of these a year. I very much looked at this, even though I did want a 3-row car. I still considered this because we didn't necessarily need an additional 3-row car. So I kept looking at the RAV4 and the RAV4 hybrids, and I really want a RAV4 Prime, but they're going to be so scarce. It's going to be very hard to get one. And if you get one, you're going to have to pay a substantial premium. But this is very linear. You can see the first 3 years, it goes down to around 66%. So that's 34% over 3 years, 11% per year. But once you get to 2017, it's very flat. From 2017 all the way to 2015, it only goes down by around 6% of the value. Those are very inexpensive years. Okay, so the original price is like $30,000, and this is a 6% decline. That's $3,000 over 24 months. That's super cheap. Okay, now granted, you are outside of the warranty period, but it's still relatively new, and the cost of maintenance and repairs on a RAV4 is quite low overall. And you can also get an extended warranty for any of these cars, before the term is over, and that's something you can do and price into that. Toyota Highlander, another Japanese car. The first year, similar to the Lexus RX 350, 20% drop in the first year, but then after that, very, very minimal declines for the next few years. Then another relatively mild slope. After 5 years, it has decreased by about 40%, around 8% per year in total. So that's holding its value well. A Honda Pilot doesn't do as well after 5 years. It's down to 50% or slightly higher, so 10% per year. But 2019, again, is a great year to buy that car, because that first year of ownership is not going to cost very much, only a few percent. Now, when you get to the European luxury cars, that's when you start to see a lot more depreciation. Okay, very fast in the beginning. So an XC90, and I looked at a number of these cars. The third row is not as spacious. They're gorgeous cars. I really liked it. They have the Volvo autopilot thing on there, and if you get certain features and certain trim levels. And that car has been basically unchanged since 2016. So if you want a car that is well depreciated, but has, well, I'm trying to get at, sorry, a lot of the newer cars that had the features I wanted, a lot of the safety features, they only had them on the newer models. So I couldn't buy like a 4-year-old car and get the automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, reverse automatic braking, adaptive cruise control, and lane keeping assist. Those just are not on a lot of the older cars. That's much more recent. And then also Apple CarPlay. The XC90 was quite advanced when they came out with their their newer kind of series back in, I believe it was 2016. And so if you wanted to get a car with those features, which is why I really consider this car heavily, you could get a 2016 XC90 at almost half the price and still get a lot of those safety features, okay, because they depreciate very quickly. So the first year, it drops 25% in 1 year. This is a $62,000 car to buy new, and that first year, you're going to lose around $16,000. That's a lot per month, right? $1,300 per month of depreciation on that vehicle. And that's just the middle of the road vehicle. You can spend more and you can spend a little bit less. But you get a 2018 and you have like 7% depreciation in that year. That's a pretty cheap cost of ownership for owning a nice luxury vehicle. And you can go back to if you bought a 2016, that's half the price of a new car. And Volvo has actually a very nice certified pre-owned program. I did look at a number of certified pre-owned Volvo vehicles. They have their warranty go out to like 100,000 miles. And they're very selective about the cars that they will certify. So the repairs on a Volvo can be very, very, very expensive. But if you have that extended warranty, that can really mitigate that risk of buying a car that's already 3 years old and holding on to it for a number of years. Now, when we get to like Mercedes and BMW, these European cars very rapidly depreciate. Okay, so a BMW X5, 20% the first year, then it gets down to, that's 80%, then it goes down to like 68% by year 2. Then it's down to 57% by year 3. By year 4, it's under half the cost. So you could get a 2016 X5 for around 44% of the original value. At 2015, you've already crossed underneath the 40% line. You've had more than 60% depreciation on that vehicle if you buy a 2015. So you can actually get like a very luxurious European car a handful of years later and get it a lot cheaper. If you look at Mercedes, it's not quite as... it kind of has a more jagged pattern. I don't know if this is because they had some change in the models, for example, at 2018, perhaps. I'm not sure. I'm not as familiar with this, but the C-Class has, you can get like the GLC, which is like a 3-row, which is an SUV of the Mercedes SUVs. I think it's a 2-row SUV, but you can see at 3 years, it's almost half the price. So it depreciates to 50% in 3 years. If you buy one at 2017, however, that's actually a very cheap time point to buy a Mercedes because you have 2 more years and it only depreciates by 10% of the original value. So that's not bad. I also threw in a Chrysler here. So we have a Chrysler Pacifica 2017 model that we bought. Actually, we bought it a year old, off-fleet vehicle, Touring L. Bought it in 2017, but it went into production at the end of 2016. So it was already a year old. We bought it for $26,000, I believe. And 2018, 2017, 2016, all relatively similar in price. 2018 has almost no depreciation that first year. 2019 to 2018, also very minimal. 2019 Chrysler, this is the whole Chrysler lineup average, not the Pacific in particular. But the depreciation the first year is massive. It's like 38%. So incredible. There are other cars that have unbelievable depreciation. I was looking to see if Aston Martin is in here, but it's not. Aston Martins have just, they depreciate like a brick. So if you want to get a very expensive-ish car, you can get an old Aston Martin, and they can be super cheap. I didn't pick up Kia, which I want to. I'll pull it up right now. The Telluride's not in here because, again, it's a very new car, so there's no depreciation data. And Kia has really upped their game. They're a very dependable brand now. They have incredible warranties. And I mean, they have the Kia Stinger. They have the Telluride. They actually are becoming one of the highest reputable brands when it comes to dependability. Actually, I think I saw a recent survey that they're actually above Toyota and Honda, which I was shocked by. But here's like the Sportage, which is like one of their SUVs. And you can see here, after you got out a couple of years, it's really pretty flat. If you bought a 2016 Sportage, you can go out 1, 2, 3, almost 4 years before it has even 10% depreciation from the original price. So that's super cheap. The Telluride right now, if you got a 2019 Telluride, right now, people are selling a year-old Tellurides for the same price for the MSRP that they were in 2019. There's Kia dealerships here that are selling the 2020s at a $5,000 premium, and they're still getting bought up, and they don't sit on the lot for even a day. Although you can get on a list and potentially be able to get one at MSRP. But the Telluride is, from a depreciation standpoint, if you can get one at MSRP, that's an incredible buy right now. However, they do have the new Kia slightly smaller version is going to have the other 3-row one. I cannot remember what it is right now, but they have a new version coming out now in 2020 at the end of this year, which is going to looks like a lot like the Telluride, just a little bit smaller, and it'll be a little bit cheaper. So that'll be a competitor to the Telluride itself. So to answer your question, do you buy a new one or do you buy a used one? Well, what I would tell you is I personally would not buy a new vehicle that depreciates like a brick. Okay, so if you were to buy like an X5, I wouldn't buy that new. That's going to go down very, very, very quickly. Okay, if you're buying an XC90, I would not buy that brand new. Okay, now if I'm leasing it, that's a different story because it's a lease and it's just the cost that you pay to have the car, and you're already going to have an exit strategy. Although leases are often only on like the base trims, I found it hard to find the cars that I wanted with all the features I wanted that I could lease at a good competitive price. Like they had the Ascent, or they had the Telluride base at a good offer on lease, but they didn't have any good offers on any of the higher trims. So getting an XC90, I would get no newer than a 2019. I'd look at a 2019 or 2018, or I'd look down to like 2016, where you can really get the price down. Lexus, I would not buy a new Lexus RX 350. I would get a 2019 if I were getting an RX 350 based on this information. Now, if I were again getting like a 2020 at a 2019 price, then by all means. Okay. For the Ascent, it's totally a reasonable car to get brand new. It's still only a year old anyway. There's not a lot of used ones out there. If you're getting it at 0% interest, I'm still not a fan of making car payments because if you really have the money to buy a $40,000 SUV, you should be able to buy the $40,000 SUV in cash. If you don't have the cash to pay for it in cash, then maybe you really can't afford it. A lot of people at 0% are just going to buy a more expensive car than they should be because it's 0%. And yeah, so then you're just spending more money. That's how they get you. That's how they're keeping their prices up because, well, they just decrease the interest and they're still selling things at the prices they want to. Interestingly, Subaru in July had a $1,000 discount for cash purchases. When I had been shopping, I had gone to TrueCar and, they blasted a bunch of dealerships so you can get like the best price from each dealership. And one of them actually showed the best price on a limited Ascent 2020 model is like with the top trim with the navigation and GPS. I mean the highest options. That's a $44,000 MSRP, and they were selling it for $39,000. At my local dealership, the best price they were going to give me was around $40,000 plus. And I asked my local dealership 2 miles away, and they said, "Oh yeah, well we don't do that." And then I asked if they would do it, and then they said, "Okay, well we will do it in this situation." So sometimes you just have to ask for it. But they actually did have a discount for cash pay, which is the first time I've ever seen that at a car dealership, because they make a lot of their money just on the interest, right? The new cars, that is just what sets in force their downstream cash flows, which come from interest payments on the monthly payments, and then also on maintenance. They make a ton of money on doing maintenance. That's why a lot of dealerships don't offer included maintenance, because they basically lose that profit margin that regular cash flow. So often new cars are sold at break even, and these days they can even be sold at a small loss because of the downstream revenue and to get them off the lots. Okay, but Ascents are not sitting on the lots. If you want to be able to get a really good price on something, there has to be a supply-demand mismatch that lowers the price. I was shocked that I got this price on a CPO car from a dealership, but we had to go about 45 miles west. We had to go west of Fort Worth to get it. If that same car was at a Subaru dealership in Dallas, that would never have gotten to that price. That would have been eaten up a long time ago, but for some reason, people do not want to drive to Fort Worth. I will happily drive 45 minutes to save myself like $3,000. I'll go, although it's 45 minutes, like round trip 2 times, once to buy the car and then once to go back and pick up the other car. Regardless, a lot of people won't search outside of like a 20-mile radius from where they are. And sometimes that's where the best deals are, right? Because those are the places where the people don't have as much money to buy those cars, so they don't go as quickly. So if you buy a new Subaru Outback, a Subaru Ascent, that's definitely a very reasonable thing to do. The depreciation is relatively straight line, and there's no fault in that. If you do it with 0% interest, I would really only do that if you really have the money to pay for it in cash right now, and you're going to invest that money. Okay. But yeah, 0% interest is still 0% interest. It's nice to have that liquidity. I can't blame somebody for wanting to have that cash, but most people are not going to invest that money. Third, if you get a really good price on a used car, then that might be better. So that's what we ended up doing, but just because there was the right car, the right price. But I very much would have bought a new 2021 model if I had it at the right price and it met what we were looking for. We very well could have done that, especially because the 2021 has lane centering. So, all right, team. Thanks everybody for coming. I still haven't figured out how to figure out who is here on the BeLive chat for some reason. But until tomorrow, and we will do episode number 37 tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Somebody wanted me to evaluate a real estate deal, so maybe we will do that tomorrow. In the meantime, please enjoy, and if you can share with one friend, I would appreciate it. Have a good one.